Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
It is great to have your company on the Final Furlong podcast as we break down what was a fantastic weekend's racing, but also a great weekend for us in terms of winners. Yet again, winning naps from the boys, including the 14-1 winner of the Cambridgeshire, another big nap from Andy Newton. Join us Thursdays when we preview the best bets for the weekend. Why? Because for the last 8 preview podcasts, we've had at least one double-figure priced winner. If you can beat that anywhere else, then fair play to you. Andy Newton, Peter Michael, George Gorman back with us on Thursday, and we're going to do a special ARC preview on Friday as well. We also have an ARC cheat sheet between now and then with some big name guests along the way too. So make sure you've smashed the like button and hit the subscribe button for the Final Furlong podcast. It's a huge help to us with the algorithm. Georgia Cox and Adam Mills are alongside me as we go back over the key stories from the last few days, including beginning with Bo Echo, who we've told you about for quite a while now as being a very exciting horse, and he looks to have laid down his Guineas credentials, or at least his CV is on the table to be there as a leading contender. He's down to 10-1 after winning a race that Kamiko and Caribus have taken before going on to Classic Glory. Georgia Cox, he's been described by George Bowie as the best 2-year-old he's trained, and now we know why. Yeah,
his form was further boosted again yesterday when Shahan took the Burke's tally to 54 2-year-old winners for 2025, and he was third behind Bo Echo and Publish at Haydock, and he went on to win a conditions race at Epsom, which was also a wild card entry for next year's Derby, albeit he only had to beat 2 rivals. Watching it live, I thought 2 furlongs out, Billy was toying with them and just waiting when to hit the button and pick them up. I think it was more he didn't want to be in the front too soon, as I don't think he actually did that much in front, and the most experienced rival in the field, Humidity, kept him honest, chasing him to the line, whose only real blip has been in the Vintage Stakes. He has loads of pace, he travels well, skipped down the hill, and the dream is very much still alive for the next May. It doesn't look like we'll see him again until he lines up in the Guineas. Action, Lambon's brother, I thought was the one to take out of the race. He towered above his rivals, a tall, lean horse who didn't get the clearest of runs, and you'd have to think he'll get better with time and distance, although I don't think Aidan usually sends his best horse to the Royal Lodge. But then again, his brother Lambon has probably never been thought of as the best of the crop within Ballydoyle, and has still managed to be a dual Derby winner, so he'll be interesting to look forward to next year.
Yeah, very much so, with a view to Action. You could argue that he's already further ahead of Lambourne in terms of career trajectory as a juvenile, for sure. Lambourne was well beaten in the Beresford Stakes, for example, this time last year, whereas this guy's just been finished third over a trip that didn't suit, and he didn't get the cleanest of runs through either. I'm not sure it would have made much of a difference from a win perspective, but he certainly could have got closer for second, or maybe a closer third had he gotten a clearer run. Just before I go to Adam, Georgia, in terms of the fact that Billy Loughnane got him to relax early on, and then he was able to pick up as easily as he could, what does that tell you about the horse's temperament and his ability to improve for next season?
Yeah, he looks very straightforward, doesn't he? And like I always think, Bowie trains literally alongside the Rolling Mile, so he will be so natural and so slick through that. It'll be like second nature to him going through that dip, and that is going to be a massive advantage to him next year when he lines up in the Guineas.
So we're in a good spot with our juveniles, Adam. We've been telling everybody about Zaviteri. We've been telling everybody about Bo Echo. Both are significantly shorter for the 2,000 Guineas now, whereas other horses, well, they're effectively finished and they've got no chance of winning that race. But do we need a little bit of reality here with this horse? Because the Racing Post rating is 111 for the win, which is just about average. So was this a good performance, or is this potentially a horse we should be getting even more excited about than we already have been?
Yeah, I actually thought the Haydock win was probably more impressive than this. But I think we saw at Haydock that when Publish came to him, he went again. And it's kind of like that here where Billy Loughnane, like George said, was kind of holding on to him. I think it's easy to forget this was his third run in 43 days. Only made his debut sort of in middle of August. So we're still learning a lot about him. He travelled like the best horse. And at the 2 furlong pole, you could call him the winner. Now, maybe from there you might have hoped he'd gone on and won by 4 or 5 lengths, but actually I thought he was just dossing in front. I think there's a lot more to come. I agree that Action's definitely a horse to note. I don't think Action will reverse the form over a mile, but he's shaped like a horse who's going to win one of those 10 furlong trials. I'm not underwhelmed by Bo Echo. He just did what was required on Saturday. And given sort of the quick campaign he's had, I'm quite glad he's having a break. Right now, he should be the Guineas favourite.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Although I would just argue, hold on, Zavatieri's unbeaten. He's won a Group 1. This fella hasn't done that yet. Why is he a bigger price? But we've already discussed this. It's a market bias against Steve Johnson Houghton, quite frankly. And there may very well have been one against George Bowie as well, because people are just going to say, well, it's going to have to be an Aidan O'Brien horse or a Charlie Appleby horse that wins the Guineas. There may very well be a Charlie Appleby horse that has just put his hand, thrown his hat into the ring, and we'll come to him in a second. But there's an awful lot to like about him, Georgia. And I almost feel the fact that Humidity was second, this is something to really raise the profile of Bo Echo again as well, because he's a Royal Ascot winner. His only defeat, proper bomb out, came in the Vintage Stakes, and maybe he just found Zavatieri a bit too much from that day. It's almost certain he didn't handle the track. His performance in the Solara Stakes, when he probably should have won, has already been boosted. The fact that he's there, I think, suggests that Bo Echo is a really serious racehorse who's probably one of the best of his division and almost certainly has more to come. And Humidity has enough upside as well to think that they're still going to have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that Adam said. I probably was more impressed with his Haydock run, but like you said, Humidity was the right one to be second, really. And then the third horse will be, like Adam said, will still beat him over a mile, but should progress over further and with time. So I think it will work out to be a good race, really, when we look back this time next year.
Yeah, Pacific Storm, no longer a horse that we'd have much, or Pacific Avenue, no longer a horse we'd have much of an interest in as being a serious horse. He's been beaten fair and square twice now. Daytona, I think we can just start to take him out of the conclusion or the equation for major races as well. But Action, definitely a major player for the Derby trials next season. Humidity, still a horse that's capable of popping up in a big race. And Bo Echo, a genuine Group 1 performer. He's going to be done for the season. They're going to bring him back for the 2000 Guineas. They're not going to have him a prep race either. They're just going to go straight to Newmarket for the big race itself. It'll be really interesting to see how he performs next season. Could he be facing off with Distant Storm, who finally bounced back? Now, he looked very impressive when he beat Constitution River and a whole host of other horses. 9 of the first 10 in behind him to have raced have all won. It's one of the hottest maidens you'll ever see. Constitution River, we haven't seen since, but he's a Group winner as well, taking the Futurity Stakes. There's an awful lot to like about what he had done that day. He was beaten in the Acomb. Charlie Appleby, in his usual self-deprecating way, was saying, well, it's one of my horses again getting beaten in the Acomb Stakes, in his interview with Lydia Hislop. But one of the things that I was really taken with Georgia was right after he won at Newmarket on debut, Charlie Appleby mentioned a Group 1 target at the end of the season that we have in mind for him. And he brought that up again, talking about the Dewhurst Stakes, that the Dewhurst has an open field to it and that this could be the kind of horse that comes along. Does he have the ability to win the Dewhurst in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, Buick rode him with a lot of confidence, and they went out there with the mindset to make sure he channeled his energy in the right way and put York firmly behind them. I mean, it's probably nothing, and obviously the Dewhurst is at Newmarket anyway, but both of these wins have been at Newmarket, the July course and the Rowley Mile, where Charlie Appleby operates at a 35% strike rate with 18 winners from 53 runners. Another interesting point, which again is probably nothing, but Appleby's last 7 Group 1 winners in England have all been at Newmarket, which is just, I mean, I think he probably just aims them there, but it's just a point. And there's no real reason why he can't do well away from Newmarket. I think the biggest thing is he needs cover. Like you said, he's come from one of the hottest maidens. I'm not sure what he's beat here. The jury's still out on that. The second, Command Intent of George Scott's, has some okay form, but I think he made plenty of use of being the most experienced in the field, having his 6th run. And the third, I thought, was the Improver, coming from a debut win at Chelmsford, where he was quite green. But time will tell how good the race is. A mile should suit him fine on pedigree. It is just if he gets cover and settles.
So I haven't had any fears for Zavatieri, Adam. There's been not a single horse that I've seen this season that would make me worried about Zavatieri's prospects of winning the Dewhurst or indeed winning the 2000 Guineas. And I would hold that with Bo Echo. I think Bo Echo is a very nice horse. I think Zavatieri will take him. I'm Not so sure about Distant Storm, though. The way he strode up that hill at Newmarket reminded me of George Washington. He has the looks. He has the breeding of George Washington. He's a Knight of Thunder. Is he that good, though?
I think he's got that much ability. It's whether he can hold it together mentally to put it all together. I think, Newmarket is a great track, but it's not York in the middle of summer. And I think actually just the general scenario and the way that you got to leave the paddock at Newmarket, it's much quieter for him than it was at York. He lost his race at York at the start. He was beaten by the time he got to the start. He was far too keen. It was over. He's done much better here, but I think we have to add a little bit of pinch of salt that the horse in second won a Doncaster Nursery off a rating of 87 the time before. So it's not like the level of form is nowhere near as good. Yes, he's very good, and when he changes lead legs, he goes again up the Newmarket Hill. By all means, they're going to campaign him, but you'd always have that doubt of like, when a horse has done what he did at York once, they could always do it again. And I'd just be a little bit cautious in terms of the Guineas. What if he gets stall one and he's out in a wing and it's hard to get him cover? There's always that slight danger, but he's clearly got loads of ability. He's miles the best horse in this race. And if you watch back last Thursday and Friday particularly, there's a massive bias at Newmarket. Stand side rail, front runners. We'll come to a few in a minute. But, this horse did everything the other way. He was covered up, came down more towards the centre of track. And to be fair to Distant Storm, by the time he gets to the furlong pole, everything else is beaten and he pulls away. So he can't do any more than win this. But I just feel like of all the trials we've seen in the last 7 days, this was the weakest one.
Yeah.
And there's maybe a chance that he was a good horse in a field of future handicappers.
Yeah, there is that chance for sure. The price that we quoted on TalkSport right after the race and the next day on Friday when we were talking about it and I was waxing lyrical about him was 6-1 for the Dewhurst and I think 11-1, maybe more bigger than that, maybe 14-1 for the 2,000 guineas. Now you can take this as a massive positive. He's now 3-1 for the Dewhurst. But that means he's the very same price as Zavateri. So what had become initially a torture chamber of, oh my goodness, I'm not so sure I can let Distant Storm run at 6-1 is over, because if they stay these prices, then it's a very, very simple bet. You go with the proven Group 1 winner who's unbeaten in 4 starts in Zavateri, whose form has once again been boosted in group company over the weekend by humidity. And if Distant Storm beats you, then he beats you. Fair enough. That would be the attitude I'd take right now. The betting for clarification purposes is Zavateri 3-1, Stad 3-1, Distant Storm 7-2, Italy 7-1. You can get 10s. Benvenuto Chiellini, he's not going to go. Amadeus Mozart. So it's essentially built around those 4: Zavateri, Stad, Distant Storm, Italy. 3-1, the first 3. Italy's a 10-1 shot. Georgia, if you could ride any of those 4 horses, who would it be?
I think, like you said, time and time again, it is the proven form. He's had a lot. Zavateri's had been in plenty of top class races, which makes them more battle handed and experienced. Where Distant Storm again is going to have to be dropped out and ridden. So next year he learns to race properly, and that would be in the back of your mind.
So that's a vote for Zavateri there, Adam. If you could own any of these 4, who would it be?
I'm glad you didn't say the ride question. I'd never get down to these kind of weights.
Neither of us are getting away with that one.
I think I'd want to be on one of Aidan's. I just think Newmarket is going to suit. I know we all love Zavateri on this show, but is it just not the case that the Newmarket Hill is going to suit Gustad and Italy more than anything else? I just got this feeling that Aidan is going to pick them. I don't fancy Distant Storm at all. I certainly don't understand how Distant Storm can be at that price, having beaten a horse that's won a nursery and a horse that's won at Chelmsford.
It's a tight turnaround in 2 weeks too.
Yeah, it's that was a massive overreaction to an impressive win on Thursday, and the market has never corrected itself. Zavateri should be favourite because he's done it and he's got the form in the book. But I just think the track might just play to the strength of the O'Brien pair. Whether or not they'll both line up and whether or not they'll both be ridden to win the race is open to question. But I do think if Gustad is going to reverse the form, it will be up the Newmarket Hill.
Okay. I suspect we'll be talking a lot more about this on the podcast between now and then. If you want to hear what the team think of the best juveniles so far this season, you can watch or listen to last week's episode where they break down their 10 most exciting 2-year-olds, a couple of whom have gone and run over the weekend. There was one whose bubble burst, but more on that to come in a little bit. Just very briefly on the Beresford Stakes, you've got Hawk Mountain back into the winner's enclosure for the second time. He's been incredibly well backed laid on. The Beresford has been, well, it's featured horses like Luxembourg, Japan, Saxon Warrior, Capri, who've all gone on to significant success afterwards. The Wooden Basset Colt has now made it back-to-back wins at the Curragh, again doing it on the front end. He may have been aided by the softening ground towards the end of towards the beginning of the race, but he's by Wooden Basset. He's out of a Group 1 winner, and he's now a Beresford winner. Should he really be 33-1 for the Derby, Georgia?
Yeah, I remember when he won his maidens, that was the day that Ryan got off all of his rides at the Curragh, and he kept things pretty simple with the same tactics and over course and distance, reversing debut form with the runner-up, Jerry On. He should have no trouble staying further, being out of hydrangea. I did think he was notably sweaty, but he still looks like a raw type, and he should have more to come.
I agree there's more to come. He also, that's a view that Ronan Whelan expressed as well, because he has his ears pricked towards the end, and he was saying to Racing TV after the race that he's got loads left. Are you surprised to see him trading at such a big price for a classic?
I feel like we could do a whole podcast on Aidan O'Brien's 2-year-olds at the moment, of where they are, what's still in training, what's going forward. There just seems to be so many of them, and I don't think they even know who are their best chances in the classics next year.
Yeah, I was surprised he was as big a price as he was for the race that day. I was pretty bullish that he would win it. I know Peter Michael was really keen on the Ger Lyons horse and felt that the ground was the deciding factor towards the end. I suspect he's a nice horse, Adam. I'm not tempted to take that 33-1 for the Derby, and I don't think he is a Derby horse. But at the same time, it's Aidan O'Brien. He's won his last 2. He's taken the Beresford Stakes, and he's won this race with good horses in the past. I wouldn't be shocked if he did win the Derby, but the 33s doesn't tempt me.
No, it's not. The Derby picture is pretty wide open. It doesn't sort of leap off the pace of me either. I mean, I thought this was a good performance, but what I would also say is, is it really newsworthy? Horse makes all at the Curragh? Because effectively it seems to be a real sort of pattern there that if you get to the front, you get that rail, it's a definite advantage. But what I did like about this lad is the last furlong, he just really asserts. Mm. Yeah, he's gone. He's away and he's lengthening and he's doing it really well. On the back of this, I wasn't really looking at the Derby. He would interest me if he took up his Futurity Stakes entry. I don't know whether they're going to go to Doncaster. Aidan's got loads of options, but it wouldn't be impossible to think he went there. Delacroix went there last year. He just shapes like something that's kind of quite an old-fashioned sort of type in terms of, I'll get out in front, come and get me. And if he got a good lead at Doncaster, it wouldn't surprise me if he was able to hold on. This was a good performance, but the thing I wrote down was that there is a massive advantage at the track. And I just feel the Newmarket 2-year-old form is much stronger than this.
I would agree. They could go for the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud, the 10 furlong Group 1. They could go for that as well.
Yep.
Or the mile Group 1 on the same day. Either option would be open to him, as well as the Futurity Stakes. I still want to know where Constitution River is. What's the story with Albert Einstein? Apparently Charles Darwin goes to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. There's quite a few there on the sidelines, but he's an interesting one. Very briefly, I was really kicking myself over Dorset. How obvious was it that Dorset was going to run a massive race? He was sent off favourite to beat Zavateri at Goodwood. They threw him into the Group 1 Vincent O'Brien National Stakes at the Curragh, which was going to be too deep for him, but he didn't disgrace himself in that race. And then he's dropped into a sales race. I was only had eyes for composing like a fool, Georgia, and then Dorset comes along and wins, boosting that Zavateri form yet again.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. It was interesting. He was the pacemaker in the National Stakes and wore a hood, and here, where you think he'd want to go and set a good one, and here it was a drop in class and removal of the hood. He travelled into it the best, showing his class. I thought he really idled in front and didn't do a lot in front. He handled the softer conditions. I thought composing her third run in a month with the softest ground she's encountered further on faster ground might be maybe her game.
What's 6.8% to €495,000?
About 32,500, something like that.
Man, Jack Cleary, drinks on you, son. Drinks on you, kid. He's had a fantastic season, and he's got a very bright future as well. But that was a terrific ride from him. I'm sure Ronan was pretty happy with the 6.8% for 95 grand back in third and composing. But yeah, that was a smart performance from Dorset, and a lot to like about the Zaviteri form being boosted again. Wise Approach was a pretty bullish selection for most of us on the Final Furlong podcast to go and win the Middle Park Stakes, just simply because he had the best form. It seemed pretty obvious he was going to go and win the race. It's the second year in a row that Charlie Appleby has taken this race. Last year he won it with the horse who would go on to be European champion 2-year-old. I suspect Wise Approach is done for the season unless they decide to go for the Breeders' Cup. But is he a Guineas horse or a Commonwealth Cup horse in your eyes, Georgia?
I think he's speed. I think he's going to be like his brother, perfect power. I thought he did well after clipping heels early. That could have been a valid excuse if he had have got beaten. It put him on his back foot early, having to come from the back on what is usually a speed favouring track. I thought, well, yeah, he covered more ground than anything else. And I thought he liked having something to aim at and run down. As when he hit the front, then he did drift left and go into the second and third late on. He sounded like he was done for the year, and interestingly, the Alcor Sprint was mentioned and the Commonwealth Cup. As it was good to get a clear answer, because I remember when Shadow of Light won last year, straight after Charlie Appy said, oh, he's speed. And then next minute it was, oh no, actually we're going to try at the Classics for the Guineas. So, but it also brings to light again another Ballydoyle horse on the sidelines, as he was second to Charles Darwin in the Norfolk, who's a full brother to Blackbeard, who never ran at 3. So it would be interesting to see what happens there.
Well, Charles Darwin apparently is on his way to the Breeders' Cup for the Juvenile Turf Sprint, which would be interesting, but it's disappointing that we haven't seen him since Royal Ascot. He's another one of those high-profile ones. And in some ways, Adam, when you see him winning, especially when he recovers from that awful start, as Georgia was saying, and the halfway point didn't really go his way either. It was a bit of a nightmare for Buick, but Buick gets up. Great ride from him to recover. Great performance from the horse to recover. There's a part of you that just goes, dang it, where's Charles Darwin? Because he dismissed you. He just brushed you aside at Royal Ascot. Now, to be fair to Wise Approach, he can only beat what's put in front of him. He ran a blinder at Royal Ascot. He's run a blinder in the Prix-Mornay, and now he's got his deserved Group 1 win.
Yep, yeah, he's deserved his Group 1 win. If I'm being harsh, this was a terrible Group 1. Imagine if Wise Approach wasn't in this. The second favourite was a horse of Joseph's called the Publican's Son, who finished second on his only previous start of 40-1, which shows you how bad the form must have been that thing was sent off as second favourite.
Yeah.
I know it was quite eye-catching on debut, but still, Brussels has finished second, having been pretty well placed throughout. He's got official rating of 100. Didn't exactly set the world alight in that sales race at Doncaster. Got turned over at Tipperary the time before, albeit by the secret adversary. But you're kind of looking and thinking, I don't think anyone's looking at Brussels thinking, oh, I wonder if you'd back up quickly in the Dewhurst. So for me, I just look at this race and think, it was a great performance by an experienced horse who's got all the best 2-year-old form. He's got form with Gastad, he's got form with Charles Darwin, he's danced every dance, he's done really well. But he's been able to recover from a pretty poor start, overcome the track bias, made a few mistakes, made his ground on the other side and still got there, which kind of raises a few question marks for those in behind. The Alcor Sprint would be interesting. 3-year-olds actually have quite a decent record in that race. It wouldn't surprise me going into that if they rolled the dice in Maidan. The Commonwealth Cup, the problem is if you're trying to think ahead and think, I can find a Commonwealth Cup horse, you have to factor in that most of the field are going to be campaigned as milers and then drop back. So it's just trying to work out where they're going to go. This lad, to me, doesn't look like he's going to stay a mile. He's done very well. He's got a Group 1. He's had a brilliant 2-year-old season. But surely this field is not going to throw up 3 or 4 Group 1 winners next year.
It doesn't look like it. And I think we can wax lyrical about how great a performance it was from Wise Approach to be able to overcome all the adversity he suffered in the race, while also pointing out the fact that he was able to overcome all of that adversity really doesn't say a whole lot about the horses he beat. And you can look very positively at Brussels' performance and say maybe he'll improve for that, and perhaps he will. It's an Aidan O'Brien horse. You never know where the ceiling is. I don't know. I think the rest of them are all just sort of a muchness, and I wouldn't be too concerned about them. We know that this is a Commonwealth Cup horse, so you know that he's going to be aimed at that race, and I wouldn't put you off backing him. But at the same point, I'd be trying to find something else that can come through between now and then, and it wouldn't be any of the horses in behind, at least for now. We'll switch to the fillies, and another Royal Ascot, at least a horse whose Royal Ascot form was tying in. She won the Queen Mary Stakes. That's True Love. Aidan O'Brien has now won 6 Cheveley Parks in the last 11 years. That was one of the things that I really liked about the horse, Georgia. I was told there was a fear that True Love was over the top, and she has had a bit of a hard season, but even in defeat the last day, she finished miles clear of Puerto Rico, who goes and bolts up in the Champagne Stakes on his next start. So the form was there for you, and Wayne Lordan gave her a great ride.
Yeah, I think your eye was drawn to her the whole race. Outside Havana Anna, she travelled strongly and showed a lot of pace. I think we saw a different horse to what we saw in the Phoenix Stakes. The market principles came to the fore, the only blip being Beautify. The Lauer third and fourth. The Lauer form was third and fourth. I didn't think American Queen really likes the track, but still ran well. And True Love and Havana Anna look set sprinters for next year. They have a lot of raw speed, whereas Royal Fixation, I thought, looked the miler in the field. You'd have to think she'd be more comfortable over further. She seems to struggle with the early tempo, as she did at York, and maybe over further with that bit slower tempo. She isn't taken off her feet earlier, and she might handle the Newmarket dip better, but it would be question marks to if she came back to Newmarket. As it is hard when you're on your head into the dip, it makes it very hard. And I think that there was word of them the first two both going to America. The most interesting point in the after interview was Aidan O'Brien seemed a lot more positive about Delacroix running again, which didn't seem likely after Leopardstown, but possibly with the dry forecast. And I don't know if he was just toying with John Gosden, but he said he's open to going for the Champion Stakes, but obviously he'd run into Ombudsman or the QE2, where he could potentially line up against Field of Gold. So I thought that was another interesting point from the after interview.
Sorry, Georgia, just to correct you there, you mean Ombudsman will have to bump into Delacroix, not the other way around. Delacroix doesn't run from his enemies. He doesn't run from horses he's afraid of. He turns up and tells them all he's going to be there. Ombudsman, on the other hand, he goes hiding in the corner, polishing his trophies and remembering days of yesteryear, hoping that there'll be another pace collapse for him to benefit from. I can't wait for that horse to get crushed. Adam?
Yeah, he's going to be crushed by Calandigan. Anyway. No, this is a really good performance, but she is huge. Longest stride in the field, 7.71 metres. Aidan's interview afterwards, he's like, she's grown, which is quite unusual for us to have a filly that's growing at this time of year, but she's massive. Absolutely dominant in this field. Surely they have to go the Breeders' Cup. They have to. While she's on top, before anything else improves past her, go to the Breeders' Cup. Absolutely brilliant performance, right back to form. You can't really knock... I mean, True Love has done it all the way through the season. One little blip at the Curragh maybe, but this is a really good performance. Absolutely hammered this field. I thought Royal Fixation was a little bit better than the result. Probably didn't seem entirely sure and in love with the dip, but finished quite well. But, right, whether True Love trains on next year is open to question. But right now, she is probably the best 2-year-old around in terms of the fillies division. And if she goes to the Breeders' Cup, I'd be all over her because I just don't think anything will be as dominant as she is.
I agree, and I wouldn't even worry too much about the draw. It's Aidan O'Brien. They always overcome it. The difference this year will be it'll be Christophe Soumillon and not Ryan Moore. But Soumillon's a genius. I'll trust him. And she's going to be very, very hard to beat in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. A race that Aidan O'Brien has got a pretty decent record in Meditate, obviously taking it a couple of years ago. Just with a view to classic credentials for next season. So she travels very powerfully and she does have a really good turn of foot. But Aidan was expressing concerns about stamina for her. If she's going to stay a mile, better to try it at Del Mar where you're on fast ground and it's a tight turning track. But that's a whole different kettle of fish at Newmarket. So does she look like a Guineas filly to you, Georgia?
No, I could see her taking the same path as Lake Victoria last year and going on to win the Breeders' Cup. But I don't see her, that's fastly run. You're not going to be keen around those tight bends and everything. There's too much to concentrate on. I think she has a lot of speed. And like you said, Guineas Mile is very different to Delmar. So her sister was a Group 2 winner over 6 furlong, her full sister, and hasn't gone up. Well, she only ran once this year and was very disappointing at a big price, so clearly isn't much. And her other half sister by Galileo, Lily's Pond, was a 9 furlong Group 2 winner. So even with Galileo, it wasn't like she was influenced. It wasn't like she was a 1.5 filly. So I think she has got a lot of speed, and I more see her stepping up to Breeders' Cup and then stepping back down again next year.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The Breeders' Cup definitely appeals, and I would be surprised if she doesn't take up that engagement, Adam. They've got other firepower for that race as well, but she seems ideally suited to it. And they rolled the dice with Lake Victoria, so why not do it with True Love? But can she be a Guineas horse, or is she more of a Commonwealth Cup one?
She wouldn't really be on my mind as a Guineas horse. I don't see her sort of thundering through the line in a manner that suggests to me another 2 furlongs is what she needs. And also, you have to look at the way Aidan campaigns these 2-year-olds. It's kind of, do you really want to back anything of his for the Guineas?
No.
And I just think the way she shapes, I could see her dominating at 6 furlongs. I don't think she could dominate the race in the same way over a mile, because I think they always have in the back of their mind that we're riding her to get the trip. And I just think 6 furlongs is made for her. But you also have to bear in mind, like she if you just watch the replay, even if you don't look at the stride data like I do, you just watch the replay, like she's massive compared to some of these fillies. So there's always a chance that over the winter they're all going to change. Some of them are going to strengthen past her. Right now she's at the top of the tree, crack on. And then if they get lucky and they come back in the spring and she's the same horse, or she's improved again, then you can make a plan. But she's the one that I think, she's been on the go all season. She's very experienced. She's very talented. But there are 1 or 2 others in that Guineas market who I think are going to take another step forward. Whereas I don't think True Love will improve for going up in trip.
Yeah, and she's a no-name never as well, so this might be her. You might just be seeing her at her best as a juvenile. But some of them trained on. Alcohol-free is a good example of that, but I'd be definitely all over for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. Not so much for the 1,000 guineas. What about Zanthos, who wins the Rockfell Stakes? This is her done for the season now. She'll be brought back next year by the Crisford team. Good ride, I thought, from Oisin Murphy. Grabs the stand-side rail. That was clearly a golden highway. But I also thought it was a good ride, Georgia, because we talked about a horse that you really like called Talene, who was sent off a dominant favourite for this race. And that's understandable, because last time out at Leicester, she had absolutely destroyed Zanthos. But looking at that race back, and I said this on TalkSport 2 on Friday, I think Oisin Murphy was caught napping. I think he thought he had the race controlled where he was. You're a jockey, so you can tell me. And then when he glances over, suddenly this horse has burst clear with a fantastic turn of foot in a race that turns into a sprint finish. And I think he just accepts very quickly, there's no point in me chasing down that horse because I'm going to give her an unnecessarily hard ride and then sacrifice a win the next day. Whereas at Newmarket, he grabs the stand side rail, he doesn't mess about, he takes control of the race, and it's over with 2 furlongs to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was a very, very different setup from ground to race tempo, just the whole thing. And I think it definitely helped that she raced alone isolated against the rail, and no one even tried to set her alight. And I think she still does need to drop it early. I don't really think Oisin had much choice rather than to go forward with her. And I thought she was racing on fumes late on. Talene, I don't think that was her true running. She was all at sea in the dip. The inexperience could have been her undoing, but I just, I don't think that was her true running at all. I mean, I'm still not convinced. I still prefer the likes of Revival Power or True Love in this division for next year. Simon Crisford is a big spender at the Breeze Up sales. This filly was bought for 48,000 as a yearling, and then Arcana Breeze Up's 1 million. And a note of caution with that would be Carlos Way won this race for them a few years ago and was never seen again. Yeah. Coto de Casa by her same sire, Sayous Nation. I've never seen something sweat as much as she did as a 2-year-old, and she hasn't won this year. Van Dijk was a massive horse who should have done better at 3. Was only seen twice. Arabian Dusk, over 500,000 purchased. All 4 of them never won again at 3. So I do prefer others in this division going forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was pleased to see her win because I'd backed her at 20-1 for the 1,000 guineas, but she's the same price. And the comments from the Chrisfords afterwards, Adam, were, we don't know if she's a Commonwealth Cup horse or a Guineas horse, but we'll learn in a Guineas trial early next season. Nell Gwyn or, what's the other one? Nell Gwyn and...
Fred Darling.
Thank you. Brain not engaged, not working. But thankfully, that's why Georgia and Adam are here to bail me out. Is she a miler for next season, or does she have too much speed?
I'm not sure. The problem is she's so skewed. It's kind of like Oisin Murphy won, the other 9 jockeys nil, because he got the high draw in his favour, came to the rail, and as Friday's card proved, that rail was probably worth 3 or 4 lengths. But what I would say about her is kind of, if she lined up in the Nell Gwyn, I'd back her. Because if you watch the way she goes through the final 3 furlongs, she doesn't change her legs once. She just gallops on. The stride frequency and stride length doesn't change. She handles the dip perfectly. So she's ticked the Newmarket box. It's just a question of, can they get her to settle? Because she's got to settle to see out the mile. And she definitely had an advantage, both in terms of the way she was ridden and also where she was on the track. This was a really good performance. She's 20-1 for the 1,000 guineas. That's probably fair. That's probably fair because, as Georgia said, with the family, there's issues. But the one thing you do at least know is she handles Newmarket. Handled it really well. Probably the best of anything we saw this weekend in terms of just the way they handled the track. But she's got to step up again. Who knows? I mean, over the winter, it's anyone's guess. No one can be exactly certain. This was a really good performance, but there are tougher tasks ahead. But as I said, if she lines up in the Nell Gwyn, I'd be tempted purely because just the way she handles Newmarket would suggest that she'll be quite well placed. I'd assume Oisin will take the same tactics in 6 months' time or 7 months' time when he lines up there. Could I see her winning a trial? Yes, but I think in the 1,000 guineas she'd probably come up short.
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a question mark about is she a strong enough stare for the Newmarket guineas, but she's a horse to like, certainly, and she's back in the winner's enclosure with a lot of excitement for the Chrisfords ahead, but words of caution from Georgia and from Adam, eloquently worded as always. Are there going to be any words of caution trying to temper my enthusiasm for the greatest horse we saw over the last few days, arguably the most exciting miler in training? Move over, Rosalien. You've had your time. It's over for you. But don't worry. The baton will be picked up by a far superior horse in Zeus Olympios, who maintains his unbeaten record and kicked Opera Ballo out of the way and gave him first run and a beating, Georgia Cox. How good is Zeus Olympios?
I mean, what a few days for his owner, Shaco Bays. Like you said, he looks set to take the mile into vision next year, or he might even say 10 furlongs. He was one of the most inexperienced in the field. He did a lot wrong, taking a while to settle. I think his stablemate flight plan probably could have gone on another stride. A few of them were keen, or they were just keen going horses. Prague is a keen horse, Opera Bellow is a keen horse, so they could have well set each other alight. I don't think the race was ran to suit him at all, having to switch round Opera Bellow, who had already had first run on him. And, he could have, being that keen, could have been the undoing of him, and he did well to overcome it all. Carl Burke is just untouchable. So is his sire, Knight of Thunder, who just this year have had the likes of Ombudsman, More Thunder, Desert Flower. He looks like an unfurnished horse as well, so physically he'll do better. And I mean, it must have been a tough watch for Roger Varing, as him and Boiling Point both came from his yard when got moved by the owner. So yeah, but he looks like a promising horse for next year.
And Carl Burke made a point of mentioning Roger Varian, Adam, in the winning interview with Lydia Hislop afterwards, saying that he came with a big reputation from Varian's yard and that they always liked him, but they've had to take their time with him. He's getting there. Straight after the race, Charlie Appleby was asked about Opera Ballo, and I think one of the questions was maybe he just didn't settle well enough to do himself justice, and immediately Charlie Appleby said, absolutely, hold on, the winner is a super horse. The winner is very, very good. But he also maintains the belief that Opera Ballo is a proper Group 1 performer for next season. He's going to go to Dubai and try and learn more out there. So how good is Zeus Olympios and how good could Opera Ballo could be? Because I think both of them will be winning Group 1s next season.
Opera Ballo could win a Group 1 if he can learn to settle. And I just think that's a big if with him. when people almost go like, oh, they're quite surprised Opera Bellow didn't settle. I'm like, have you watched his previous race? This thing's a nut job. He doesn't settle for anyone. That's just how he runs. He ran to form. He had no excuse whatsoever. He was in the right place. I don't think the jockey did anything wrong. He just wasn't good enough on the day. Zeus Olympios come past him. The rails, perhaps a help. I don't think there was a great deal in behind those two, but he's the only horse to drop below 11 seconds in the 7th furlong, despite being keen. If we do an Opera Bellow first, Dubai will help, because if they go to Meydan, he'll go round the bend. And I think going round the bend will help him, because I think it might just relax him. And the other advantage Godolphin have is if they go to Dubai, they can put 3 pacemakers in the race if they want to. And they can just line it up and make sure he's got plenty of cover, help to settle him. I think that will make a man of him, but I don't think we'll see him winning Group 1s on straight courses. I just think he needs a bend. I think he needs a bend. I think he needs something to put roadblocks in his way, because otherwise he's just going to pull himself out of it. Zeus Olympios is all right. I just don't see it. And maybe I'm like the only person in the world who doesn't see it, but I'm just like, this is all right.
Why don't you see it?
I don't know. I don't really know. I wasn't overly sold by the Haydock race, and this race was like, it was good, it was all right. I liked his last furlong. But I think Opera Bellow's just a bit nuts, and Detain was in this one thing, and it's kind of like, just where's the Group 1 horse that Zeus Olympios is roaring past? Now, I think it's a real shame, because I don't think they'll want to take on Rosallion. I think they'll give Rosallion one last go at Ascot, because, it's Rosallion, and you can't imagine if Rosallion gets chinned by something that the owner owns. It'll just be the final nail in the second place coffin.
Great for Sheikh, he who must be obeyed. He's not going to care. Yeah, but frustrating for Richard Hannon. Why
wouldn't you roll a dice would be my question. But I guess they'll wait for next year. Races like the Lock-ins will be on his agenda. He continues to improve, and you can't knock him for that. He's unbeaten. He's running really well. Carl Burke is clearly having the best season, one of the best seasons of his life. Everything's going right. But I'm just kind of like, sometimes we're talking about these horses like he's a superstar, and I'm like, show me the superstar he's beaten. Because at the moment, I don't see it.
I think as well, considering he was unraced at 2, he has come a long way in a fairly short space of time. And you'd think he would come on again for next year in that way.
Yeah, that's one of the parts. Sometimes in racing, it's not just as simple as looking at, here's one horse he beat that has proper Group 1 form, and that's enough to be able to say this is a Group 1 horse. This horse was sent off 7-2 on for his debut. 9-4 on under a penalty at Thirsk. Okay, fair enough. The horse he beat, the Coolmore horse with Roger Varian, is useless. But that wasn't the attitude at the time going into that race. They thought Dewhurst was pretty decent. He's dismissed him. He goes to a Group 3 on his 3rd career start, unraced as a juvenile, and he gets backed into 11-4 favoritism, having been 16-1 and 18-1 on the Thursday when we previewed it, and napped him on this podcast at 18-1 and 16-1. And then they throw him into a Group 2 against a horse that Charlie Appleby regards as one of the best he's trained, potentially the best son of Gaiath. It's been a long target for Opera Bellow. He gives him first run and crushes him. He'll win the Queen Anne next year. And he'll win the Queen Anne because there's nothing to worry about. Tell me the horse who beats him in the Queen Anne next year. Carl Spackler? Oh no, Carl Spackler. Who's going to stop him? Is Field of Gold even going to be around? Do you even trust him to come back to what he was? Henri Matisse didn't go forward. Diego Velasquez will be retired. Delacroix will be retired, even if he does drop back to a mile. Who are we looking at? Who's the horse we're all thinking? Oh, Dancing Gemini? Is next year going to be the year Dancing Gemini comes good? Okay, fair enough. Lead artist? Is he still going to be knocking around? Is Notable Speech coming back in training next year? There is nothing for this horse to worry about next season. Unless something special emerges between now and the QE2, and I don't see it. So he'll win the Queen Anne. He may very well win the Lock-ins. That's going to be a starting point. And then we'll see how he gets on against the 3-year-olds. But he'll win that. He'll win the Queen Anne for sure. Can you counter that, Mills?
No, I'm not gonna let myself up in some piece of clickbait that gets thrown at me in 9 months' time. But I'm just kind of like, the one thing I would say with Opera Bellow is, and they won't do it, but you should have a look at the stats for Gaiath when they're gelded. You can basically back every Gaiath gelding blind and you make a profit of over £20 level stakes. There is an improvement there with him, but clearly you don't look to geld horses with this kind of pedigree and reputation unless you take it very seriously. So that's it. I mean, look, Zeus Olympios has done nothing wrong, but is he certain to win the Queen Anne? You're certain he's going to win that? Don't know. I'm quite happy just to sit quietly on the fence with this one. And if I'm proved wrong in a year's time, great. And if I'm proved right, I will be retweeting this episode like there's no tomorrow.
I'll tell you the horse that could beat him. Never So Brave. That's it. That's it. He's the only one.
Yeah. We might have a little match bet on that if it gets around to it. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, and bear in mind, I'm a big fan of Never So Brave, so I might have a slight change of heart that day. But right now, it's Zeus Olympus all the way. You were told here on the Final Furlong podcast before anybody else that this is going to be a superstar, and I'm hoping he can be. Hey, Georgia, you hang out with the great and the good of the racing world. Do you have Charlie Appleby's number? Can you ring him up and say, we've got an idea, geld that opera Ballow?
Well, to be fair, he isn't shy of gelding expensive purchases, etc. And I like Gareth as a horse, so I don't want to say much bad about him, but he stepped it up a notch on the track when COVID hit and there was no atmosphere and nothing to G him up, and then he was a bit more tractable in his races, and that's when he got a roll on. So a lot of them do look keen, a lot of them have hoods and ring bits, etc. So I mean, it is a fair point, and yeah, I agree with Adam. I could see that, and if it's not too late, I do think some people geld them too late, and I wouldn't put Charlie in that category because he is quite quick to geld expensive purchases. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So just to sort of point this out, right? I like doing the little systems like this. So if you have Gaiath, and we'll leave out the fillies, and we'll just pick on the colts for this point because that seems the better way. So if you back every Gaiath colt, every Gaiath horse, your strike rate is 18.8%. You do make a slight loss, but bearing in mind where the connections they're in, you're never going to get the prices. But if you were to back every Gaiath gelding, the strike rate increases from 18% to 25.8. The average above expected in the market is 1.67. And to a pound stake at SP, you make £22.93 profit compared to a loss of £9 if you back every Gaiath. There is something in there that says, take away the equipment and this horse will improve. But the problem is, if you take away the equipment, as several very talented French horses have shown, it's great to win these Group 1s, but there's no future in that. So I'm sure they would like, if they can, to get Opera Ballo a Group 1 as a colt. And then there's the last resort. But it is something just to bear in mind. There are several stallions out there that the gelding operation makes a massive difference to their performance, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that I don't think it's Charlie, because they were doing this gelding operations way before Charlie Appleby became the primary trainer. They were doing it back in Sideben's Roar's day. But whoever's idea it is to geld them, I appreciate it, because at least it means, okay, you now know this is a racehorse, just train him as a racehorse, you don't have to worry about a stallion career. And also they've just accepted, yeah, maybe he cost 5 million, but he's not good enough to be a sire. So just focus on what he was bought for, which is to be a racehorse. And sometimes that works. Here's the argument you can make, Georgia. You can say, Charlie, Adam thinks it's a great idea for you to geld Opera Ballo. Whoa. This was literally your idea. Adam thinks it's a great idea for you to geld that Opera Ballo. He's got all the talent in the world, but he can't focus on it. And look at how well it worked for Rebel's Romance.
Yeah, I mean, Rebel's Romance is the most straightforward horse, and he makes everything very easy. And he's showed that again, giving Billy his first Group 1 winner, and now Frankie on board. I don't think there's that much more to say in that. He's an incredible horse. He's 9th Group 1 win, and he done it pretty easily, didn't he?
He crushed them, and you can argue, it wasn't that great a race. El Corbedes in behind. Like, El Corbedes was a winner of the Sword Dancer and Grade 1 company at Saratoga the time before that. Pretty sure Farbridge is either over the top for the season or just not the horse he once was, which is a bit of a shame. Wouldn't underestimate Miguel Clement's ability to be able to get that horse back into the winner's enclosure. But Rebel's Romance towers over this lot. As Georgia says, that's now his 9th Group 1 win, or Grade 1 win. It's his 2nd Group 1 win of the season. He's a 7-year-old. We should just point out, Adam, he's now bidding to become the first horse ever to win 3 Breeders' Cup turfs. He'll be going for back-to-back wins, having missed it, having won it in 2022. He should be favourite for the race. And unless something comes into the race on the back of bombing out in the arc, that's going to be an afterthought for whoever it is. He is the one they all have to beat.
Yep, completely agree with that. You certainly wouldn't want to lay him. This horse knows how to win. You know, he just turns up every time. There's no chance whatsoever Romance won't run his race. You know, this probably wasn't even his best performance of the season, but he still beat them. And he's just an absolute guy. You give anything just to own one leg in him, let alone the whole horse. He's an absolute superstar. In that Breeders' Cup, I wouldn't want to take him on. Whether you can get enough of a price to want to back him is open to question, and you always need a bit of luck on those turf tracks. But you wouldn't want to lay him at tens. He's such a good horse, so consistent. It'd almost certainly be in the 3. If something gets a better ride or a better run on the day, then so be it. But I just think he's magnificent. It's just the kind of horse you think, well, whenever we do anything, sort of looking at the Group 1 races, if he's in the race, that's how you set the form.
Yeah.
What did Rebels Romance do? And then those that beat him obviously went to an exceptional level, and those in behind probably still ran to an exceptional level. So consistent, joy to watch. Another great performance. Gotta be in everyone. I know you'd have a good lucky 63. He's got to be in that for the Breeders' Cup, surely.
Oh, he's the banker leg of it. Him and True Love are 2 selections you just put in without even thinking. If Rosalian was to turn up for the mile, by the way, Adam and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If Rosalian, knock it off this QE2 nonsense. Don't go there. Go to America. Rattling fast ground, tight turning track. Sean Levy, balls of steel. Just send him. If Notable Speech is going to be favourite for that race, you should be going for the Breeders' Cup Mile, and that's the race you'll win. My opinion. But, Georgia, we are going to see almost certainly an afterthought from horses for the Arc that didn't quite work out, or maybe they ran a good race and placed whatever. And horses that decide they're not going to go for the Champion Stakes because the ground is going to be too bad, so they reroute to the Breeders' Cup Turf. But he is the one they all have to beat. Even those horses, you're not entirely certain how those middle distance turf horses are going to be suited by Del Mar, but you know exactly how Rebels Romance is going to be suited by it.
Yeah, exactly. He's just ultra consistent and ultra straightforward, and he is, like you said, the standard setter on form, and it will be interesting. Maybe while Adam's on the phone to Charlie Appleby about Opera Bellow being gelded, he can ask why Rebel Romance was gelded before he ever ran and started off on the all-weather.
Yeah, they ran him on the dirt as well. He won the UAE Derby back in the day. Maggie Wolfendale was saying on the Naira broadcast for Fox that he just towered over everything in the paddock. He looked like a proper racehorse, whereas the others just couldn't match him physically. And just finally, Georgia, the fact that he's a 7-year-old, I think most people will just go, oh, well, clearly he's not as good as he once was. He's obviously on the downgrade. But Sir Michael Stout used to say that horses don't reach their physical peak until the age of 5. And Willie Mullins said last year or earlier this season that National Hunt horses don't reach their physical peak until the age of 9. So is it just because so many of these horses are packed off to stud, City of Troy like at the end of their 3-year-old career, that it's so rare for us to see a horse continuing to race at Group 1 level at the age of 7 that we're not accustomed to seeing a horse like Rebels Romance do this, but actually this is what we should be seeing more of.
I think people like to pull out those stats, but how many 7-year-olds are going at this point? You know, there isn't enough stats of 7-year-olds still going to then pull something from it. So I don't really look into it. It's like when Anmat was running in the Champion Stakes, people kept saying, oh, the last time a 7-year-old was to do that, but you know, how many of them actually, there isn't enough form to go on to pull out stats like that. And he has given nobody any reason to suggest that he isn't still in the form of his life.
Kiprios was 6 when he won a Gold Cup. Yates was 8 when he won his 4th Gold Cup. Plenty of evidence there to tell you that if you keep them going, they can do it. And we keep seeing sprinters winning Group 1 races at the age of 9, even 10. Rebels Romance to roll the dice yet again, and the Breeders' Cup. Hopefully we'll be previewing that for you on the Final Furlong podcast. I'm pretty certain we're all in agreement. Are we all in agreement that he's a banker for the race? That he just goes and wins? Don't worry about the rest? Georgia?
It will be interesting to see who else turns up, because like you said, there might be some late horses being redirected, but yeah, he's you know you're going to get your money worth, or he's going to run a good race.
Yeah, that's why Ombudsman's not going to run, because Buick's going to want to ride Rebels Romance at him.
You'd think so. It's interesting to see Mini Hawk is favourite for it, but I guess that's just kind of people thinking there's a Fillies allowance, so therefore she must be fav.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Calandigan's in the race. I'd be very surprised if he turns up. Delacroix's in the race. Goliath, not for me. I think he's gone at the game. Pride of Aris, unless the Breeders' Cup's moved to York, isn't going to win it. And then you look at it like Wimbledon Hawkeye and Al Riffer. You know, there's potential there. But if you kind of went through that list and said, right, which horse is going to be suited by going around Del Mar on the turf on the first day of November, it's Rebels Romance. Everything else would either have to prove that it can cope with the travel. Lots of other things are going to be going to Ascot or to the Arc. You've got others that are on recovery missions. You've got plenty of horses here with no Group 1 form whatsoever. And then you've got this winning machine that just turns up in every Group 1 race and runs it. So, you know, it's a bit of a dirty bet at 4-1, but it's some serious each-way filth to back that thing at 4-1, because I'd be stunned if he's not in the first three in that field.
Well, I think there's a unbelievable each-way scumbag double. There is no way Rebels Romance is out of the first three, and there's no way that Sierra Leone is out of the first three. So if you want to have your account closed, each-way double Rebels Romance Sierra Leone. And there's a fair chance that one pays off. Look at Adam's face. He's already contemplating. He's like, do you know what? Feck it, he's right.
Yeah, well, that's not the worst way of sort of looking at it. It's a kind of thing.
4-1 and 5-1.
Yeah, and because Rebels Romance goes first, he's the more consistent of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he didn't win, you could get out in the place market. Oh, it's a right one for a bit of filth. It's a very interesting angle with the Breeders' Cup. There are lots of races where you think, oh, we've got this huge market with like 50 names in it, and there's like 4 that can win.
Yeah.
And that's basically the Breeders' Cup Classic is that. There's, in my opinion, 2 that can win. The Breeders' Cup Turf, there's probably only 2 or 3 that will even turn up, let alone win those races there. The Breeders' Cup Miles are a little bit more open this year. Yeah. There's a couple of nice ones in there, but there's still... Yeah, it's not the worst little dirty bet.
Filly and Mare Turf is very open as well. If Whirl turns up and she's back to the form she was showing, then great. But if it's fast ground, does she handle it as well? Maybe. And what turns up instead? Mini Hawk's participation is going to entirely depend on the Arc, and if she wins it, then she'll probably rock up. But if she doesn't, do you even want to back her? And then there's your horse for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, who's what, 11-4?
Hold, please call. I want to see if I can get a prize for you.
The
Ted Noffey.
Yeah, Ted Noffey. I think he's 11-4.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Breeders' Cup.
The more legs you put in, the more there's a chance one of them lets you down.
Oh, of course.
But still, yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, we have. Hold up! Wait a minute. True Love is 4-1 for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Okay, so we got 4-1 on True Love. We've got 3-1 on Ted Noffey. 9-2 Rebels Romance. I mean, if you want to give the money away, then fair enough. And for the classic Sierra Leone, it's 5-1. Okay. Thanks very much. Socrates going to take a lot of beating, but Sierra Leone shouldn't be that big a price. Okay, anything else to mention before we wrap up? Anything to put into the tracker, Georgia?
I think we've covered a lot. One in the handicap, I still think has a big day in him somewhere. And he was on the rail. What's his name again? Indian Springs on Saturday. He raced against the rail and never really got out under a bit of a tame ride. And I just think there is a big day in him somewhere, and he will pop up somewhere, and he'll be one to keep an eye on. Like, he wasn't like, you wouldn't watch and think, gosh, he was unlucky, he should have won. But it didn't play to his strengths, and I'm still sure that he's got a big day in him somewhere.
When you mentioned handicap, I was certain you were going to say Enzinjan, and then I thought Peter Michael is going to burst into the Zoom link to StreamYard and start ranting and raving about the ride that horse was given. He was not happy, but he did have another double-figure price winner over the weekend, so Peter Michael Racing continuing in great form, and he'll be back on the show on Thursday. Adam, anything for you?
You got 4 to add to the list here. The first one is a bit unusual. It's a horse called Wee Sam, who won at Newcastle on Friday night. He's a 4-year-old gelding by Exceed and Excel, trained by Saeed Bin Saror. This was his debut. So the boys in blue have had to wait to the September of his 4-year-old season to get him up and running. But he was really well backed on the day, went off 5-4, absolutely bolted up. And then when he hit the front, did absolutely nothing at all. He's gone straight in the track, and they must surely have Dubai in mind for him. I thought he shaped really well at Newcastle. Next up is a horse we mentioned on this show in August when he won at Deauville, which is Sibayan. He won the Group 1 Price of On Europa at Cologne yesterday. He is in the 2-mile long-distance cup at Ascot, but he surely won't take that up now. I'd imagine he'll go to the pre-Royal Oak a week later, but he absolutely bossed this race. Second was a horse called Tiffany of Sir Mark Prescott's. Couldn't lay a glove on him. Another Group 1 for Francis Henri Graffard, and a really nice horse. I think he'll take a lot of beating in that pre-Royal Oak at Saint-Cloud. Third up, then, we're going to go completely left field, and we're going to go to Dundalk on Friday night. But I just had Dundalk on in the background. There was a winner there called Quick Shot, who won his second race in a row for Adrian Murray in the Ammo Racing Silks. Absolutely bolted up over a mile 3. Came from an uncompromised position, really, and got himself in front. Is in the sales, but I think he'll probably win again. And if you like a bit of Friday night Dundalk, he's the sort of horse who, at least until he's sold, will run up a sequence. And then lastly, with the Breeders' Cup in mind, Bob Baffert had a winner of the Goodwood Stakes at Santa Anita on Saturday night, called Nevada Beach. Beat last year's Breeders' Cup mile winner. Really good ride by Mike Smith. Judged the pace perfectly. Didn't give the winner, the odds-on favourite, an easy time in front, and then pulled well clear in the closing stages. He's 3 from 4. He's booked his ticket to the Breeders' Cup. I really like him. I think he could be my Breeders' Cup mile horse, so it's worth going back and watching that.
Okay, so one for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which we need to get a bit of a handle on that form. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have Howard and a few others on between now and then. I was trying to get the Saeed Bin Saror easy money clip, but it won't load up for some bizarre reason. But Wesam, W-E-S-A-M, and the son of Exceed and Excel out of a High Chaparral mare. Really well backed, and Newcastle one to follow. All right, that's it. George is going to be back with me on Friday as we preview the Arc on Sunday for you. So we'll have a detailed preview of the Arc. We're going to chat to Laurent Barberan on the podcast between now and then as well to get all the lowdown on the French Raiders and what to be knowing and who to be following from the unbelievably in-form Laurent Barberan. Georgia and the team. I think Jack's going to be here with us as well on Friday. Thursday, usual preview. Peter Michael, Andy Newton, the man, Andy the Nap Newton. That's what we're calling him from now on. He just keeps on delivering. And George Gorman here with us on Thursday to preview the best of the betting for Saturday at Paris Longchamp. And then George will be here with us to preview the Arc. Adam hopefully will make a cameo appearance between now and then as well. And of course, all the team will be back here on Monday. If you haven't already, hit the like button on this episode of The Final Furlong. It's much appreciated. Smash the subscribe button as well so you never miss an episode. From Georgia Cox, Adam Mills, and me, Emmet Kennedy, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon on The Final Furlong podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
Thanks for spending some time with us on The Final Furlong podcast. We're independent media, so if you like what we do, hit like, share, and subscribe. It's free, it's quick, and it genuinely helps. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Don't miss out. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major platforms, and join us on the gravy train. The Final Furlong podcast. Independent, unfiltered, and powered by you.